So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to make this animation from the slow motion music video by Marshmello and the Jonas Brothers. So we are going to tackle some parts of the video on how it was edited in After Effects. So I have provided the G Drive link, which consists of the Photoshop file and the PNG file. So you can just simply import that in the After Effects project. So the first thing that we're gonna do is to recreate this opening sequence right here. So what we have now is an empty composition for the opening sequence. So as you can see, for the opening sequence, we have slow motion text that pops up. So we are going to go to text and type slow. So we have to adjust the position. So for the font, we're going to use something closer or something a bit more similar to the font used in the official Lyrical video. So what we have for the font is Canada Gothic Bold. And then we're just going to adjust the size of the text, make it 190. And then just again, adjust using the guides in After Effects. And then we're done with slow. We're going to copy that and paste another one. And this is going to be motion. Just adjust it on the grid. So we're going to move this because slow appears first before the motion. And then we're going to set keyframes to create the echo trail effect for the text. Go to effects, type echo. Number of echoes, 15. So we're going to set the keyframe. Click P for position. Set the keyframe. Next is add echo for the motion. This time, 15. And then set a keyframe here for the position. Right there. Alright, so the slow motion text echo trail is good. Now next is we're going to create the 4x4 image here in the middle of the text. So how that was created is we have a fade in effect here. And then when it fades out, it has a tint of red and it goes down. So again, I have placed the Photoshop file and the PNG files down in the description in the G Drive link. So just click that so you can get all the files that you need. We are going to go to File and Import File and just click this one and just import it. So the import kind is composition, retain layer sizes, and then make sure to click this editable layer style so that it won't merge together in one file, so that you're able to edit one image at a time since the transitions are separate per image. So just click OK. And it's going to create a new composition, just this one. And then if you double click it, we're going to go inside of that composition. This is where we would want to make the keyframes and the edits. So the next thing that we want to do is, since I wasn't able to name the layers, we're going to name them one by one so that we know which layer we're working with. Alright, so after naming the layers, we're going to arrange them accordingly so that's easier for us to edit. So the first one that appeared is Marshmello, and then Kevin, and then Nick, and then Joe. So let's move to the right because they don't pop up simultaneously. So we're going to do opacity for all of them. T. So set a keyframe here, and then move it to the right. And then make this 0. Then just copy it to the rest. So it's easier and you can just move them. Alright, that looks good. And now we're going to add the blur. So what we're going to use is Gaussian blur. Alright, so now you have that. Just gonna copy this again and then paste it to the other layers so that it is faster and easier. Just move it based on the timing. Easy ease. F9 is the shortcut for the easy ease. So that is good. So we're going to add the opacity again, 100 and then 0. Then let's add a tint. Let's use a darker color of red. So that's the code of the red that we're gonna use. Alright, so we're gonna keyframe the tint. We're gonna copy the exact same thing for all of them. And then now we're going to apply the tint and opacity for all of the layers. Position here. Alright, so now that we have applied the tint, the opacity, and the position adjustment, we are now going to arrange them. So Kevin fades out first, and then Nick. Right, so now we have created the keyframes. This is now how it would look. Alright, so now that is done, we are now going to open the main composition to combine the opening sequence that we have created. Drag it here, drag the comp here. Let's see how that would look. This is the composition for the opening sequence. So as you can see, the spacing is not right. So we're going to adjust that right now. So we're going to open the open sequence comp for slow motion text, and we're going to make some adjustments. Make sure that you are on the right keyframe so it won't create another keyframe when you're making adjustments. Move this a bit. Let's see how that would look. Alright, so that is the opening sequence. Now we're going to create the lyrical text animations. So this is what we're going to recreate. So the text, background, and there is a portion of a picture. So let's do that now. Create a text. So again, the font that we're using right now is the Canada Gothic Bold. And then let's just adjust the font size. This is the text right now. So the animation for the text is per word and it goes up. Go to effects and presets right here. Drop down on the animation presets and presets, and then go to text. And then we're gonna go to animate in, slide, and pop in. So that is how the animation goes. So how we're going to replicate the animation is, since this is going down per word, we're going to adjust this. Wipe position offset to 94. Just remove the negative and it will look like this. So that's what we want. But the first part is zoomed in to those two words. So what we're going to do here is Control Shift D. So for this part, I split the first half of the layer because that part is the one that we have the zoomed in to the usually not words. And then I just remove the type to keep them waiting because that's going to show in the zoomed out part. And then just adjust the keyframe for the first half. So we just split up the layer because the first one was just 2 words, which is this one, usually not, and it's zoomed in. So we're gonna adjust the scale right now and then adjust the position because it was at the center. Adjust the keyframes so it would look like this. Alright, so as you can see, the animation for usually not is here. So how we're gonna do that is we're going to copy this. This one, it doesn't have any animation, so we have to remove the animation for this one. And then this is just going to be the words usually not. So we're gonna change the big one, the one with the zoom in, usually not, and then this one is the small one so that we know which layers are which. And then that helps by just deleting the other half and just keeping it as is. Just delete the usually not here and then just keep the space so it will look like that. So just adjust the timing of it so it would match perfectly to the timing of the original one. Right, that looks good. And now we're going to add the image, which we will add here in the main composition because again, we would have to add a wiggle effect on this composition, which we will add later. All right, so we have created verse 1. So this is verse 1 composition, which we will drag into the main comp. And then we're going to need to create a solid as a background for this. And at the same time, for this composition, we would need a color black solid. So we're going to create those. Go to layer, go to new, click solid. Make sure this is black and it's the right width and height. So click OK. So that is a black solid for this sequence. And then for the other one, we're going to create a color red solid. So again, layer, solid. And the color red code that we're going to use for this is this code right here. So just click OK. And then just drag it at the bottom of the verse 1. Just make sure that's aligned right there. So let's see how it looks. Alright, so far it looks really nice. So the next one for this, it's missing the partial image. So I believe that is Joe. So we're going to add either the Photoshop or the PNG. So we're gonna drag it here in the main composition. Because again, we're going to add the wiggle effect here later on so that the image does not move. Put the image on top so it can be seen, and then adjust the scale and then adjust the position. There you go. Now we're going to create the echo trail going down for the word waiting. So again, we're going to go back to the verse 1 composition. We're going to copy this, and this is going to be renamed as waiting text trail. So just remove the effects for this, effects and animations, just remove it. And then just keep the word waiting and then adjust the position of the word. Make sure it matches to the same word. And then we're going to add echo again, just for this word. Make sure to move it here so that it won't appear earlier than needed. adjust the duration to the first one. So we're going to need many number of echoes for this. Let's try 200. Edit the position. And then we're going to adjust the opacity. Also add a Gaussian blur to it. So that is for the text trail. So the next one is the transition from this to the first verse. We would need to add for this part, since the transition has a blur effect to it, we would need to have an adjustment layer and add a Gaussian blur to it and use keyframes. So we're going to do that by, again, going to layer, click new, adjustment layer, and then we're just going to put it in between these layers. I'm going to put it here. So this is the transition from the opening sequence to verse 1, right? So we would need to rename this as blur transition and add Gaussian blur to this. Open the effect, and I would need to keyframe this. So from 0, maybe 10 to 20, and then 0 again. Set another keyframe here for the same blurriness so that it would last longer. Alright, that looks good. So that's a blur transition. So the next one we're gonna do is for the text overlay on the photo of Nick Jonas. Alright, so we're going to create the text overlay over the image. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to create a text and copy the red solid from earlier. So we're going to put that below the text layer and just align that. And then we add either the PNG or the Photoshop file. I'm going to put this in the middle. Just adjust it. So we're working with the main composition. So we're just adjusting everything and make sure that the text is aligned at the center. That looks good. And then we're going to adjust the image. And we're going to set this at stencil alpha. In order for you to see the red solid underneath the text and the image, is you go to the image and go to track matte and make sure that it's clicked to the text. This right here. So we had another blur transition there and a zoom out. So what we're going to do is we're going to just copy the text and the image, because with the solid we're just going to extend it. Paste. So this is the second one. Just going to copy the blur transition right here, put it in between them, move it in the middle, and for this we're going to just adjust the scale, adjust the image, make sure that the text is at the middle. So make sure that the image is not too small, or else you're going to get this. The text will not be seen at some parts. Let us see how it would look. Just adjust the keyframes. So since this is a quick transition, we're going to adjust the keyframes right there. Alright, so this is going to be the, I like where this is going with the image at the back. So since it still has a red solid, we're going to just simply use this again and just place things at the top and just extend it. So we're going to use another composition. I'm just going to name this composition pre-chorus second line, and the duration, just adjust it. So now we are in the new composition. Again, just use either a PNG or a Photoshop file. Adjust the scale. Alright, so now we're going to add text. This is going. Alright, so we're just going to adjust the font size and the scale of it. So it's at the middle. As you can see here, let us adjust the opacity. And then again, we're going to add the preset animation. use slide and pop in and drag and drop it to the text, and then just again adjust the Y position offset by removing the negative. I forgot the first line, which is I like where. Sorry for that. So again, I forgot to add the first line. In order for me to mitigate that, I just copied and pasted the second line that we just did and just adjusted the length of the layer. Again, I'm just adjusting the layers and the keyframes here to match with the timing of the animation. Just make adjustments here. And then just copy the composition that we created to the main composition. Put it at the top of the solid. Let's adjust it. Alright, so just make adjustments right here. That looks good. Alright, so now we are going to create this animation right here. We have the side-by-side text of slow, and then this left side has the red solid color, and then the right side is the black color, and the animation is going to the middle. So we're gonna do that right now. So just create a new composition, and that's what we have right here. And then just go to text, type the word slow, make sure it's at the center or at the line right here where you can see the title and action safe here, so it's even. And then just adjust the position to this line, and then go to effects and presets, type echo. I'm gonna put it right here. Number of echoes is 10, decay is 0.70. So this animation is from the bottom going up. So let's click that keyframe here and move it to the right because that's where we want it to end up. And then from the bottom, set another keyframe. So it looks like that. If you want the animation to be much more smoother, click F9 or your keyboard shortcut for easy ease. So it looks like that. And now for the right side, we're just going to copy it and paste it. So now we're going to rename the layer so that we know which layer we're working on. So this is the left side, and this is the right side. We're just going to remove the keyframe here and then adjust it to the right side. Again, make sure it's in the same border so that it's even. And then just move to the right so that it won't appear. This animates. And then again, click the position keyframe. It's here on the right side because that's where we want it to end up. And this one is coming from above, going down. All right, so that looks good. And again, easy ease. And it would look something like this. All right, so if you want to animate it earlier so that it's not stagnant, just adjust the keyframe. All right, so that's what you have. And now for the main composition, we're now in the main composition. We're going to drag that down here. All right, so now as you can see, we don't have any background, we just have the text. So to fix that, we're just going to click the black solid and red solid and just copy that and duplicate it. And then put it at the bottom. And then just move it to where the composition is. Make sure it's aligned properly. All right, so make sure that the red solid is on top. All right, so make sure that the solids are on top of each other because we're just going to move the position of the other solid. You can see the black. Make sure that the red is aligned to the middle so that's even. So it looks like this. There you go. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is the motion animation. Just edit it in the main composition so that it's easier. So again, we're going to type text here, motion, and make sure it's at the center. And I'm just gonna reuse the black solid that I had earlier. So make sure that the black solid is at the bottom. All right, so this is motion. And then make sure that increase the scale. Adjust the position. So make sure it's at the center. And then cut this layer. Control Shift D. We have this one. So this is motion pig. Again, renaming the layer so that we won't be confused which layer we're working on. This will be smaller, so adjust the scale of this. Again, make sure it's at the center, align it, make adjustment, and you're going to have another blur transition, but it's not going to affect this one. So copy that again. Put it here. The Gaussian blur keyframe is 50, and then I just created another keyframe which the blurriness fades out. Alright, so if you have any film burn or film leak or light leak, you can use that. So I just place a film burn or a light leak here. Alright, make sure that's green so it won't cover the text or the layer. Make sure to scale it up. Let's see how that looks. Alright, so this is the next one that we're gonna do. So there's the blur transition here again. Zoom in and then zoom out. And then zoom in again on this part. And then there is a marker here. And this left side is color red. This one is color white. So that's what we're gonna replicate right now. Since there was a blur transition there, I just added a blur here. And since it's a black solid again for the background, I've just extended the one that we used previously from these parts. So I just created a new composition for all this. Just type the text. Alright, so since this is the color red, we're going to use the color red code right here. So that's red. The animation for the text is just popping on the screen. So we're going to use a different text animation for that. So I want to work on this first before we go to the second one. The animation for this one is we're going to use typewriter. So go to FX and presets, animation presets, text, animate in, and then typewriter. Drag it in. The animation for the typewriter is different. It animates or it shows the animation per letter, not per word. So that's what we're gonna change. So just go to text, animator 1, range selector, advanced, and change this. Instead of characters, go to words, and this is how it would look. And then we're going to do this second one. Just copy paste it. Alright, just move this one to the right. So make sure that the position is on the right side. Change the alignment and then change the position as well as the color. So just use this code of white and then change the text. And then again, just move the position a little bit more to the right. Now we're going to insert the marker, the swoosh marker. So again, it's found in the assets that I've provided. White marker underline. I'm gonna move it here to the right. Just adjust the scale and the rotation. Adjust the position. Alright, so we would need to mask this image right here to get that swoosh effect. So we will use the masking tool. So let's use this rectangle tool right here. Go to mask 1, mask path. This is what we want to end up with. That's on the right side. Just move it to the left and then let's see how it will look. Alright, so that's the swoosh effect, but we're not done yet. We would need to smoothen this out. We would need to add mask feather. Alright, so that is much better than before. And then we would need to have this easy ease. There, so it's much more smoother now. And it doesn't have that ragged edge earlier. And just adjust the keyframe to make it more faster. There you go. Alright, so now we would need to adjust the keyframes to the timing of the animation or when the words pop up. Alright, so we are able to adjust the animation timing using the start range selector. As you can see, the numbers goes up to 100 and the animation follows that. So make sure that you would see that which number falls on the right word. So let's keyframe 43 here. Make it a bit faster. And then 43 keyframe here to make it more slower. Adjust the keyframes. Adjust the keyframes again. Keyframe there. Alright, so same thing here to get the right timing of the animation. So for this part, I'm setting up keyframes and adjusting keyframes for when I want the words to pop up. As you can see from the range selector, you can see the number in the start that it moves whenever you're playing it, and you can see the number of which part or which word pops up based on the number. So that's where I'm following for the keyframe so that I can control when I want the words to pop up. This is just a composition without the zoom in and outs. We will do that later after we are able to create this foundation. Alright, so the next thing that we're gonna do, since we're finished with this whole composition, we would drag that composition to the main sequence. Here, gonna put it here, and then set it at the right timing. Alright, so now in order for us to get that zoom in effect and zoom out, so since this is a whole composition in itself, it's easier for us to zoom in and out without moving the text around. So we're going to split this layer. So again, Control Shift D to split that layer. Alright, so since this is zoomed in, we would adjust the scale, adjust the position. There. And then make the necessary adjustments. Zoom in on this again. So adjust the scale. Adjust the position. We're able to finish that. Let's see how it looks. We would need to also add another blur. So that's the blur right there in between this and moment. This one. So I'm gonna put the blur transition again, copy it, put it in between this one. Since there was no blur in this, only in this part, that's where we are going to apply the blur. There you go. So this is the next thing that we're gonna do. As you can see, the text is wiggling. There's a wiggle effect there. There is a blur and the image in the middle, which is not moving. So that's what we're gonna do right now. We are going to add text, and I'm not going to create another composition for this because it's just two texts, one image, and the change in background color. And again, since the background color is black, we're still going to use the one we used earlier, which is this one. So I'm just going to extend it again, just adjust the previous layer, and then just add the photo of Kevin here. Make sure that it does not show in the other layers. Then adjust the scale. Make sure it's at the center. Alright, and then we're going to add text. So we're going to use the same color red code, and then transparency is 70% of the opacity. So that's opacity and it's color red. And then there was a blur, and then it transitions to white and then red background color. So we're going to copy the red solid again, put it at the top of the black maybe. And then make sure that the red solid is in the proper position. And then the text, Control-Shift-D, split that, make that the white. Again, just rename your layers. And then just copy this, paste it, and add the layer name so that you know which one it is. Again, so for the bottom, adjust the position. I think it's better if I adjust the color so that I can see. And then just move it at the bottom. There you go. There was a blur and a flare at the beginning. We're going to copy again the burn and the blur transition. Paste it, put it here. Now that's done. Now the next thing is the blur here in this part. So we're just going to copy and paste it, put it here. All right, let's see how that looks. So I would want to adjust the opacity for these text because I think it's too faded. All right, that looks better. So the next thing that we're gonna work on is this part. So there are two animations for the word slow. So this is the first one and then the second one. All right, so the first part is it has a cut, but this one, the animation goes up and then goes forward with the echo. So we're gonna do that right now. So for this one, I'm just going to create a new composition for the two animations so that I can show you how it was done. Put the text, just the position, and then the color red. All right, so now we have this text. Next thing is the echo. Since the animation is going up, I just copied the original text and just placed the text trail which has the echo. The original one doesn't have any effect, just the animation or the keyframes. And then I just placed the text trail underneath so it would have that echo effect. And I added the Gaussian blur to have that blurry effect. Alright, so the first animation is done. The second one is the one where it cuts and then small word text and then it goes forward. So we would need to cut this and place it at the bottom. And then make sure that you move the keyframe forward so that when you see the text, it's already moving like that. And then for the next part, we need to have it a bit smaller and then make sure it's at the center. Remove the previous keyframe, make sure to move it at the center, and then this goes forward for the keyframe. Alright, so make sure that this has no keyframe from the previous one since we copied it. So just add the keyframes in the beginning. I think this is much more smaller. Make it 200 and then make sure that it's at the center. And then we're going to add the keyframe for the scale. Make sure it's at the center. Key and make sure it's at the center. I would want it to be a bit bigger. Then again, we want it to be at the center. Okay, let's see how that looks. Just move the keyframes. The animation moves faster. There you go. Again, just make sure that it doesn't overlap with one another. And for you to see the animation right away without it being stagnant or still, just make sure that the keyframes are in front before the text shows so that we can see the action right away before the text shows. There you go. That's the first one. So the second one, it doesn't have a cut in the middle. So it goes up, animation with the echo, and then it goes front with the echo. Right. So that's what we're gonna do now. Since we already have this animation where it goes forward, I want to use this text. And just move it here. Show the keyframe. So what I did was I just copied the layer earlier and moved it to the right, since that's the second animation where it goes forward, and I just keyframed the position, and then I added this extra keyframe where I just duplicated this keyframe where it started moving so that we have a pause when this goes up. There was a pause before it goes forward. So that's the animation right there. So this is now the next one that we are going to recreate. So we're going to copy the animation from here to the photo gallery to the two slow words, top and bottom, with the image of marshmallow in the middle. We are going to have the word motion, and then that will go down with an echo. So since we already have that animation, I'm just going to simplify by copying what we've already done previously. Right, so this is the animation that we would be needing. I'm just gonna copy this and paste it in the main composition. So this will be motion, the word motion, and its color white, and the background is black. So I just copied the one we used earlier, and then I just placed it at the bottom of the layer, and then make sure that it doesn't overlap with the other one. All right, so keyframe. So for this, we're going to adjust the keyframe. All right, let's make this the word motion, and then let's make it white. So that's motion, and then I think the size of it is a bit smaller right there. Place it at the center. All right, so that's it. This is motion. Let's rename that motion text trail. All right, so we are going to adjust the position and then going down. Let's copy this, paste it here, move the keyframe. I think I'm just going to remove the text above and just have the text trail. Yeah, that works just nicely. This animation for motion, it's just the text trail without the text on top of it. And then we used echo again for it. And this is the settings for how you're able to create this. And now we're going to create the photo gallery. So after the motion goes down, we're going to have the 4 pictures with the red tint fading in this time, and then a lot more pictures that will show, and then it zooms out. So let's create a new composition, which we will name photo gallery. Okay, so now we are in the new composition. Drag the layers into this composition. So since this is going to zoom out, again, we're going to create the composition with the many pictures, which is the photo gallery that you've seen earlier. So it focuses on 4 images first, and then it has fade in of other images, and then it zooms out and then it zooms out again to see a much more broader aspect of the photo gallery. So we're going to do that here in this composition. So I'm gonna do this by rescaling the image, because we are going to create a much more broader gallery, photo gallery here. We're going to copy a lot of images. So I'm going to adjust the size or the scale of the images. Let's make it 40. Again, we would need to rename the layers so that we know which layer we're working with. So we have Nick, Just going to move it here. We have Joe here. We have Marshmallow here. Put it at the center. So now that we have the base, what we're gonna do is we're gonna need to copy. Again, I want to rename this to know which one is the original that we're gonna animate later on. For the red tint going up animation, we have the base. Now we have the whole photo gallery right now. I also color coded them to know which parts are present, so it's easy for me to create transitions. So we are going to make this animation going up, fading in with the red tint. Alright, so let's animate the position first of the animation going up. Let's keyframe the position here for where we want it to end up, and then just subtly adjust the keyframes. Let's add a bit more so we can see the movement. Have different animations for it so that we have variation. Let's see how that looks. Alright, that looks good. Now we're going to add a tint. To open the keyframe, put it to the right because we want it to end up as white. And then for the red, again, we're going to use the color red code. We want it to be red and then it becomes white. So you can see right here. Let's copy the tint and apply it to the other images. Alright, and then next is the opacity where it fades in. Let's go to transparency. Move it to the right. Let's have it 0. Let's see how that looks. Alright, so we now have the foundation of the red. I would want to move the red a bit more so that we can see that there was a red there. Let's move it. Alright, that looks good. Now we're going to fade in the other images surrounding these 4 main images right here. So as of the moment, it just pops up. We need to have the effect of fade in. Alright, so the animations look good, and then it fades out here. So let's make the necessary adjustments. Make sure that this is much more longer than the others. For the opacity, make sure that this one fades out. Again, create a keyframe from 100 to 0. And then for Marshmallow, his image does not fade out, so make sure that stays. And then for fade out of the other brothers, just varies. And then make sure that the ones here also fades out. Make sure that these fade out first before this. Alright, so that looks good with the animations. We have to extend these longer since we're going to zoom in and out, and then the opacity has to also move. Let's make the necessary adjustments. Alright, now the photo gallery is good. We are now going to make the zoom in and out effect. So just go back to the main composition and just drag the photo gallery in here. So now we are going to adjust the scale. We are going to scale it to this part. So it's almost 200. maybe 190. All right, so this is the scale. Fade in was a bit rushed for these sides, so let's adjust them inside of that composition. Let's see how that looks. That looks good. And then we're gonna keep that to get the keyframe so that it won't move. It would have, again, it would have a pause. And then it would have a bit of a zoom out. Let's see how that looks. And then again, add another keyframe that's the same so that we have a pause. And then zoom out again. Let's see how that looks. And then we're going to zoom into marshmallow right now. Position. So now we are going to zoom into marshmallow right now. So make sure that the keyframe is set for the position. And then we're going to zoom in. And then the position keyframe. I just adjusted the keyframe animation. And now we're going to add the text of slow. Since we already have it here, we're going to copy it. So since it's both white, that's fine. Copy and then put it on top here. So the first one is black solid and then it becomes red solid again. So just copy the solid and then put it at the, adjust the black layer, put it here. Make sure to adjust based on the timing. Adjust this as well. For the second slow, it's color red. So make sure to fix the layering. It doesn't overlap. Alright, so it would look something like this. There you go. Alright, so now we are done with the animations. So it's time for us to add those textures and effects and the wiggle effect. So the first thing that we would need to create is, let's add an adjustment layer. So go to layer, click new, adjustment layer. Make sure that the adjustment layer is at the top so that everything at the bottom will be affected by this adjustment layer. First effect that we're going to apply is posterized time. So that's found in effects and presets. So just type posterized time and just apply it here. So let's rename that posterized time. For my composition, since it's 30 frames per second, I would want to have this frame rate at 10. So let's see how that is. All right, so that looks nice. So you have that delayed frame rate effect. There you go. All right, so for the next one is we're going to add noise. So again, just go to layer, new, adjustment layer, put it at the bottom. Let's make this noise. Let's add noise here. All right, so maybe just add 8% of the noise. All right, so after that, we are going to create another adjustment layer. So now we are going to add the glow effect. So again, effects and presets, glow. So the glow effect is a bit much, so we would need to make adjustments. So for the glow threshold, make it 49%. For the glow radius, make it 75. Glow intensity, let's bring this down. Glow composite on top. The colors. All right, next one is another adjustment layer. Now this is for the color correction. We're going to go to effects and presets again, type curves, adjust the curves a bit for the black color. So as you can see, the black color has that fade effect. So we're just going to slightly adjust that so it's not pure black. Just slightly change it. Alright, so for the next thing that we're going to add is the screen noise. So for this one, I'm going to use my own effect for that. So that is a video, and then I'm just going to change it as overlay since it's just 10 seconds and I don't want to have a lot of layers here in the main composition. What I'll do is I'll create a new composition for this and just add it here and just change the duration. So I would need to just adjust the scale so that it covers the whole frame. And then I'll change this to screen. Now we have that 30 look. Have the opacity or transparency at 50% to not make it super distracting. Let's make it 30% to not make it very distracting. So now you have those dirty film effect. So the next thing is to add a bit of a blur. So again, let's create a layer, new layer, adjustment layer, Gaussian blur texture. Have it here, Gaussian blur, effects and presets, and then drag it here. Go for 10% and then reduce the opacity to make it glowy like that. As you can see, there's a glow, maybe 20%. Right, so now we have that glow effect. The last thing that I want to do is the wiggle effect. I would need to create the adjustment layer for it. So this one will be wiggle effect. Go to the stopwatch, press Alt plus the left key of the mouse, and then type this. After that, all of the things that you want to wiggle, make sure that you link it to the wiggle effect, just like this one. The image, make sure that you click the wiggle effect and then look at how it will look. So it's moving right now. That's what we're gonna do for the rest of the text. So it's wiggling, even the texts are wiggling. And for the first verse, we will also link that to wiggle effect. And since the image, as I've mentioned earlier, is not moving, look at how this would look. As you can see, the text is moving. You can also adjust this if you want things to move a bit more obvious. As you can see here. As you can see, the image is not moving, but the text is moving. So if you put the image inside of this composition, the image will also move because the whole composition is linked to the wiggle effect. But if you put it outside of the composition and it's not linked to the wiggle effect, it will not move. So that's what we want. So the next thing is the hey. So this one. So this is moving while the image underneath is not moving. So again, just link that to the wiggle effect. And it would look like that. So the text overlay is moving, but the image is not. And then we have to place this outside so that we wouldn't want the image to move while we link this. Put it here outside. And place it at the right layer. There you go. And again, wiggle effect. As you can see, the texts are moving. Apply the wiggle effect again. Same here, wiggle effect. Make sure to link all the text that needs moving. As you can see, it's moving. Same here. All right, there you go. So that's how you edit this lyrical music video with After Effects. And I hope it brought you so much value, and please comment below if you have any more questions or concerns, and I would try my best to reply to them to answer your questions.